What's up everyone, this is ScherBR talking, welcome back to my channel. On today's video, I'll be making a full review for the Romancing SaGa Soul Ruby banner. Well, it should actually be named Narwhal's daughter because she's the best character of the banner. But we have Ruby, a hit damage dealer and also party buffer for hit damage. We have Victor, a counter unit that buffs the party when he gets hit. We have Silence, a character with some ailments for remembrance. Narwhal's daughter, a buffer, maybe debuffer sometimes, and supporter. Then we have Natalie that heals when she gets hit, when she attacks, and can debuff AoE. And Sao, a character that can bring cold shields. We'll start talking about Ruby first. She gives the name to the banner. Well, she has 120% intelligence, more than enough, alongside 101% agility. So not super fast, but fast enough. Endurance is 76, that's a pretty normal value for mages, and Will is 99. Nothing here stands out too much besides the intelligence. Now, for the first passive, we have Blazing Fortune. Heat attack increases by 50%, then reduces damage taken for all allies by 5%. Yes, that's right, 5%. And then on start of battle, she will cast the same heat damage increase to all party members, including herself. So just from this part alone, she has 100%. This was buffed compared to JP, but 5% damage reduction barely matters in the long run. Then it's kind of similar to what we got with Saruin. Of course, Saruin has something else, but giving 50% increase in damage to the party makes Ruby a party leader. But Saruin also gives this +1 BP on shadow attacks, and that's super interesting, and I was expecting this change to Ruby to make her more of a meta character. Sadly, that's not what we got, and she just increases damage, and you need a full hit party in order to take full advantage. Now, the second passive is called Burning Aura. Heat damage increases by 20%. When using heat attacks, recovers BP by 2. And when attacked by an attack that will cause resist, damage taken will be reduced by 25%. Then she still has Intrinsic. When attacked by an attack that will cause resist, decreased by 40%. So we have two layers, minus 40, minus 25. She still has a 37% chance to evade resist attacks, and damage increases by 20. So her full potential on start is 140% damage increase. That's actually quite a lot for a character that is already a support as well. Now, skill number 1 is Flame Trio, and it's a single target heat attack that will buff the user intelligence by 25%, and then it also has a 25% chance to buff everyone else's intelligence by 25% as well. The good thing here is the power. C power for 1 BP cost is almost free, and she gets 5 BP per turn. That means that she still store 4. Second skill is called Garnet Blaze. This is a single target heat attack that before she attacks, she buffs her intelligence by up to 30% on max rank, and then she launches an attack with triple S power. For 9 BP cost, that's actually okay. Well, we have seen already 10 BP skills with 4S power, but she buffs her intelligence before. That means that it will feel more like a 4S attack, and she has a cycle of using Flame Trio and Garnet Blaze because 10 BP in 2 turns. But actually she can use Crimson Burn instead of Garnet Blaze in the start of the fight, but this can only be used 3 times per battle. Before she attacks, she will grant all surviving allies, including herself, this increase into heat damage by 10%. So she has 140% damage increase and can reach 170% increase because of these 3 casts. But it takes time. You start turn 1, you use Crimson Burn, then Flame Trio, then Crimson Burn on turn 3. It takes 5 turns to reach the max potential. And she gives more damage than Saruin, that stops on 50%. She will actually give 80% damage increase for heat damage dealers, kind of to trade off for not having that plus BP on heat attacks. The problem here is to make a full heat party, right? We do have some very good damage dealers like Bertrand. Well, Bertrand has heat damage in his 2 good styles. There is this Bertrand from counter. There is also this other one, Bertrand, that has counter and fire skills. There is also another very good character that is on the meta right now. That's Halloween Aspergal. That's super strong, and she has fire attack that can remove buffs from target, can debuff as well. Another recent unit, it's Matcha. She has a good set for fire attacks, and she can also debuff the enemy and remove buffs either agility or intelligence. Those characters are pretty strong and they can be used in hard challenges, but you still need support. It's hard to make a full squad, but if you're bringing 3 hit damage dealers, one of them is already support, the other 2 can be buffers that don't mind about hit damage anyway. Now, by the end of it, she's a character that is strong for damage, very strong, but still not on par as our current nukers, like, of course, Leon, even Silver, and Mirza, well, Sumir, all these very strong nukers will be stronger, but they don't offer support to the party. And, well, there's still Blue, in a way, that can buff damage to one character. Now, if Blue is on the same squad, he can also just, well, buff even further, since he also buffs intelligence. But he doesn't have many heat attacks. It's more based on Sun. But there's Waking Dragon, a 10 BP attack that hits between 3 to 5 times with both Sun and Heat, so there's some options here. But in the end of it, I think that, well, while strong, Ruby is a little harder to use. You have to have a good variety of characters in order to make the character better. If you're not buffing other people, Ruby by itself is not that interesting since she is only one type of damage, but strong enough. If you have her passive styles, like the S version that's free, you can debuff Will, you can inflict paralysis and instant kill for remembrance if you want, and her first premium style has fire arrows that becomes pierce as well, not that it matters much, but she can debuff intelligence by medium effect, that is 20% debuff. It could be useful if you are bringing hit damage dealers in a fight, but besides, it's a pretty straightforward character, just deals damage and tries to increase hit damage for the party. I believe she deserves a triple S grade, not an OP grade, because Sadowin is better, generally, because he gives more. But even then, she's kind of easy to skip. If you get her on the way to summon for Narwhal, it's nice, but don't feel bad if you skip the character. So far, there is no version of Ruby after this one. That's what you see and what you get. The next character is Victor, and he is a tank that can self-sustain and buff status of the party. 116% endurance and will are extremely high values, and he doesn't have much firepower, just 103%. STR agility is bad, but he does have some intelligence, and we'll be discussing this later. Now, he has the first passive that gives him a follow-up when using Sunder Plus. That's right, it's attached to a certain skill. This is a 3 BP attack with 8 power that before attacking buffs his STR by 30%, then he launches an attack, and this attack will trigger Flowing Slash Plus. That is this skill here that also has 8 power, and it will try to debuff the enemy STR, but this time by 15% because it's rank 1. So he's trying to increase his damage and trying to debuff the enemy STR, so made for physical encounters, not exactly for enemies that are casting spells. Hence why you need to focus more on STR. And when landing an attack, he recovers 1 BP. That means that if you are using the attack and chasing when using Sunder Plus, you are actually only spending 3 BP and storing 2. That's right. Now, the second passive is called Firm Knowledge 1. When an ally is attacked, he has a 37% chance to take their place. Well, that's similar to what we saw in the past with Noah, with Mask. This could be useful, but since he wants to be attacked, he'll be in the center of the formation already. This is more for those moments where a character can be attacked by accident. He does not taunt with his passives. That means that, well, sometimes someone can get attacked. And this protects someone, but if you are receiving an AoE attack, the good thing is that only 4 people will be hurt. And he reduces the damage. That means that he will not die easily. When he is attacked, he would then buff all surviving allies, endurance, will, and charisma by 5%. Here we need to discuss, we get a future style in Julian, that is a counter attacker that can buff the party, but he needs to counter direct attacks. It's different. This guy here will trigger those values passively. Doesn't matter if he evades, if it's a spell, it will just buff the party. But 5%, it takes time to build up. We have to remember characters that had this type of passive before, like Princess White Rose. She had that in her Halloween style. She buffed 15% will when she got hit, for the whole party, so that was actually something interesting to survive enemies that were attacking too much and you needed extra U to defend versus ailments. Besides Pumpkin, we also have Golden Ball. Golden Ball, with her 2 latest styles, she can also buff, but instead buffing Endurance instead. So in the end, 15% is much higher than just 5. That means that you hardly see an impact unless the enemy attacks 4 or 5 times in a fight, and even then you get a higher impact by using other types of characters. Hence why I can see this guy being power creeped super fast. Then the third one is Crisis Management 5. When attack damage will be reduced by 40%, and when landing an attack, he grants himself a damage block 50% of the time, and there is no turn limit. If you are using Thunder Plus, you have actually 2 attacks, since follow-up attacks have trigger chances. But this guy will just keep trying to self-buff, to debuff, and get damage blocks when still using double A power attacks with low cost. It's just that, look on his passives. None of those increases his attack. It's all about relying on a strong weapon and buffers in the party to increase his damage potential, because just Sundered buffing is not enough. Now for skills we have Guardian Stance. This is a support fast that will just grant him defense boost, decreasing damage taken by 50% for only 1 turn. Good thing is that it's free. We had skills in the past that were capable of doing this, but needed to be cast by mages, but now he himself can do it. This is for the moment where he took too much damage in 1 turn, in the next one he may not have enough HP and you want to protect the guy because he may take the bullet for someone and, well, die. You don't want him to die, you want him to keep the buffs stacking. But in that turn he won't do damage, he just gets 3 AP as well. Sunder, we already discussed it, it's that A power attack that buffs STR before attacking, that feels more like an S power attack because of that STR buff. Pretty cool for the cost. But we still have Flag of Avalon, that's the latest attack and it will grant defense boost of medium effect that decreases damage taken by 25%, lasts for 5 turns and does stack. You can actually use this more than once if you are using PP generation in your party, like for example Socho or sometimes even Valdor. And then the user enters a taunt stance that will draw more attacks towards him for 4 turns. I really don't like when you have to cast taunt via skill, because sometimes you want to do something else and you need to keep that value. I much prefer when you have taunt every turn, that will scale much better than just having to cast. So this is a weak attack, only S power, already cementing the character as a damage dealer. But if you want him to protect some other people, drawing more enemy attack is the way to go. And he gets 4 BP when not using Sundered, so you can actually use Flag of Avalon on the average of 2 turns sometimes. So 2 stacks of defense boost, 2 stacks of taunt. May not be enough, but, well, at least he will just be alive most of the time. But he does not self-heal, that's it. I just believe that Victor works by buffing the party passively. Like I said, it buffs even when hit by indirect attacks, but he is not as good as Noel. That was borderline overpowered. Some people still believe that he's overpowered, we may discuss this later, because this guy here is different. Well, he gets BP when he gets attacked, he can chase with life drain, he can stack many of these attacks. That's not a guarantee to chase, but it works. And when he attacks, he buffs his endurance and will by much higher values. And okay, he's not much of a party helper, but he can solo some stuff. He can heal the party with his Gloom Dancing Blade. And he still has a defensive cover, but this time it's an active skill. Well, I don't care too much about defensive cover stances because I don't think any content screamed for the use of this mechanic. It's something that people ignore sometimes and barely makes any difference. Hence why I don't think this guy is good. Well, it's between start of Triple S grade for me, barely receiving only SS minus, but I do understand that the character work is just a type of mechanic that is passable. He does have some inheritances like Flowing Slash itself, but why would you use this? It's costly. And he does have this other attack called the Dark Flowing Slash that can be amplified, and it will debuff the STR of an enemy by 30%. That's exactly what you can do with Acupuncture Plus for many Spear users. So it won't rely on his intelligence, since that one is not that great. You can see 81% will miss in many enemies that you need to debuff. So this is actually an interesting inheritance if you need. He could also amplify Jotun Slash, but in the end he's not a real damage dealer. Well, Victor is pretty passable, sadly. He is not better than Noel. Noel is much better than him if you already have that guy. But if you already have Final Impress, that offers much more. She also buffs Endurance and Will passively by 15% without needing to get hit. She also offers much more, like Morale Down, Defense Boost via Inheritance, and can give Evasion. I'll still give him an SS plus grade because his design works, although it's not something that I would trade a good character for. This is the last version of Victor so far on JP, so at least you know that. The next character is Silence. Oh my god, what they done to this guy. He has 118% dexterity and average values for both endurance, agility, will, and intelligence, because yeah, he's a hybrid and suffers from it. First passive increases all surviving allies pierce damage by 30%. This was made for remembrance. Okay, I understand. He also gets 4 BP per turn, and when he lands an attack, he recovers 1, so at least 5. Then he increases damage by 20, then another 20 for a total of 40, and grants himself defense up in effect, max of 5 times per battle to reach around 40% damage reduction by turn 5. So he starts with low defenses. He gets at least 70% damage increases more for the party, but is that enough? I don't know. His attacks are pretty strange. First one is a row attack with pierce damage that casts Morale up medium for all surviving allies, increasing their damage by 25%. But again, you already have passives in the end. This is more like a 10% damage increase. Then we also get this action order up, very large effect that should be up to 50%, increasing your speed for 5 turns. I don't know why you need that much, because this guy was made for remembrance, but it will allow you to attack before some enemies, but it still won't go before any fast attack. Maybe versus Wyvern, I don't know. The second one is Mystery Tap. It's a support skill that will try to apply confusion to all enemies. There is medium chance, so this was made for the Wuhan Remembrance battle. Then we have the third attack, Stinger Bind. That's a row attack as well. This is 10 BP, and we'll try to apply Paralysis with medium chance, lasts for 4 turns. This was made for Real Queen. So he works for Real Queen, he works for Wuhan, and could work for Wyvern as well. That's how he was designed for. For other types of content, you could theoretically use Stinger Bind and then Battle Conductor, but his damage is not that great for the future. He may kill the first wave, but the second one he will never. And there is inheritance for this guy, but the attacks are pretty bad. For example, he could just use his Stingray 3 times in a row, but this time this skill will have only power to farm very specific star stages, nothing more than that. So a pretty just okay unit that adds utility for remembrance, but he is not a generalist, very restricted in his own design, only receive an SS- grade in the tier list, and is pretty much passable and the only style of Silence so far, sadly. The next character is Narwhal's daughter, finally in a whale form. That's right, and this time she is actually pretty good. I was waiting for this style to release. I skipped her past version because I knew this would not need inheritance. We have here 110% endurance and 100% will for a support unit. Those values are actually amazing. She's not as fast, that's a problem, only 87% agility. She may not buff you before the enemy attacks, not just that. She may buff after your character's attack. You need to understand that because this character's not perfect. She does have okay love and charisma as well, and 103% intelligence because she can attack, although it was not designed for damage. First passive, we have on odd turns, counting from start of battle, she recovers 1 BP and then all of her status by 15%. And then on even turns, she becomes a party supporter because she will give VP to everyone, including herself, and buff all status, including herself, by 15%. So she is getting 15% all status every turn. That means that her endurance and will scale super fast. She will not take too much damage. Won't see she getting inflicted with ailments unless you're playing the game wrong. And that extra BP to the party helps out because she can use Water Festival via inheritance that will also give BP. You can kind of program to use Water Festival in one turn and then get BP passively in the other turn, so that she theoretically gives 1 BP to the party every turn. Very nice. And also buffing status passively can help you with some content where enemies are too fast and you will not have enough time to buff before they attack you with ailments, like Time Lord on stage 180. Then we have Offense and Defense 2. This is Scrum Guard but better. Reduces damage taken for all surviving allies by 20%, but they need to be alive. And then we have this 10% damage increase all the time. Well, when they are alive, but 10% is not important. We all want that defense for the party. Then we have Latent Bloom Defense that increases damage by 20%, but she only has 30% damage potential. And on start of turn, she gets this defense up that can be triggered 5 times for a total of minus 40% damage on average by turn 5. So she may take more damage on turn 1 because you only have 10% damage reduction and then the 20 that you get from her Scrum Guard. But if you are stacking other defense boosts, you will not see much difference because of her very high endurance and will. Now for skills, we have Acquired. That is a single target E-power attack for free that we also have with Muse that has a chance to debuff the will of the enemy by 15%. Her intelligence is not that great as some other mages, but you don't need to debuff will and you will not want to use this all the time. Sometimes it can trigger the 5 weakness, but if you use this on one turn and then skip the next one, it will not be a problem. The second skill is called Sea Lord String. It's a single target cold attack that when the attack lands, it's not fast. It will grant morale down small. That will decrease damage taken by 15%, lasts for 2 turns. This does not stack, so you will only want to use Sea Lord String again after 1 turn, so every 2 turns. It will buff all surviving allies status by 25%. Since it's 8 BP cost, she always have 8 BP in 2 turns. It's a perfect cycle of buffing the party and reducing damage taken by 15%, but only versus 1 target. Since she already has Scrum Guard, you can see that she does have 2 layers of defense increase. Now, Sea Lord String carries this problem of maybe not attacking before the enemy, but she does buff her agility as well. All turns, eventually she becomes fast enough. So if it doesn't help you so much on turn 1, it will help later. Skill number 3, it's a single target attack that can only be used once per battle, has triple S power. It will grant heat up for the whole party, increasing their damage potential by 15% for the whole fight, and it will give her another defense up that decreases damage taken by 20% for the whole fight. That's cool, but you don't really need this on the start of a fight, because you may need buffs first. On start, you don't have much, so start the fight, buff yourself, and when you reach overdrive, it's okay to use this attack because it will grant heat up for everyone. But it's not fast as well, so maybe you use it one turn before, I don't know. You can even just forget that this skill exists in some fights because you always want to be buffing. It's on you. But now we need to discuss inheritance, and here is where things start to become much better. Well, Water Festival from her first limited style that can now be pitched in any banner, it's amazing. Why? Because she buffs all status just like with her second skill, but instead of casting morale down that does not stack, she casts defense boost that decreases damage taken by 15% but lasts for 4 turns. 4 turns, it stacks with other sources of defense boost and even with itself, and it will also recover all surviving allies BP by 1. It's 9 BP cost, that means that when you recover 1, it effectively only costs 8. That's the same cost as her second skill. But now, in 4 turns, you will always be able to cast Water Festival at least 2 times. So you will have 2 defense boosts starting from turn 3. Yeah, minus 15, and then you still have that minus 20 from her Scrum Guard, and then she will be buffing the party actively and passively. If you start with Water Festival, you'll be buffing by 25%. Then the next turn, she buffs passively by 15%. Turn 3, she buffs actively by 25%. That is her cycle with either skill number 2 or with Water Festival. I just believe that Water Festival is better because of that BP generation, like I said. She will be giving BP to the party every single turn. I do believe that she now competes with Valdor in a way, but they also work so well together because as soon as Valdor decreases the cost of Water Festival to 7, she uses it and recovers 1. It's just 6 BP. And she gets 4 BP per turn. That means that you can, for example, cast Water Festival 2 times in a passage of 3 turns. I do believe that Valdor is the best one to use with her, but you could theoretically use Socho as well. Socho is another one with a good setup. He draws more enemy attacks towards himself, and he gives 10 BP to the party. And yeah, she still works with SaGa, because she would decrease the BP cost by 10. That allows her to keep using her skill a lot of times, but then eventually SaGa is made for shorter fights than the other characters. In the end, it's a support unit that will try to replace Maria in most fights because, well, sometimes we bring Muse. She already has Krumguard, and she buffs every turn. And we bring a secondary buffer. That could be sometimes Witch's Daughter, could be Maria. Now Impress buffs as well, but I don't think that she is used as a secondary buffer. Most of the time she's using it as a defense booster, but she's in hybrid. But Maria is not as good when you're thinking just about status buffs, because she won't buff as much. But now, Maria still has something for her. She has that heal when she's using Golden Dragon Dance. She has that ailment resist that cannot be removed by the enemy, and she has that heal that revives and cast evasion. This is nice and can help you in some fights. But I believe that many people that don't need the evasion will try to bring Narwhal's daughter in the place of Maria. But if they still need Maria, well, you have to replace the third supporter. That sometimes is Death, for example, because Death gives a more stable defense boost, but it does not buff status. You can choose based on what the current content asks for. And you can still kind of use Narwhal's daughter in the place of Muse if you missed her, because Muse only buffs 4 status, and Narwhal's daughter will be buffing all of them. So it's an interesting character that just stays in the meta for quite some time because of having lots of part utility. Now, she still has more inheritance like Trick or Treat Carnival that instead of buffing, will actually debuff the enemy and apply defense down. That will also stack to increase your damage potential and still recovers BP. But it's much harder to use this because the enemies like to use the Defy weakness and they can trigger it via their sword of a certain number of debuffs or volleys. So I still prefer Water Festival because it's on us and not on them. The other inheritance don't matter much besides Ring of Life Plus, because this one here removes debuffs applied to the team, and if you don't have Razen, for example, in your party, well, this is a way to just make it work, but can only use it 2 times, still uses LP and not limited time usage. In the end, Narwhal's daughter is a very interesting character. I was thinking about her trade, and I do believe that she's borderline overpowered without inheritance, so I would say that for now, I prefer to give her an OP grade, even without inheritance, but I must say that with inheritance, she's even better and more of a recommendation than without it. But if you're happy with your characters, if you just summoned for Final Impress is, in my opinion, more important. And if you already have Death, Muse, Maria, you can skip Narwhal's daughter because it's another way to play, but it's not changing the wheel. I like to have multiple buffers because they are usually the first cards I think when I decide upon a squad, but, well, it's on you. But that doesn't change that she deserves an OP grade, as she is too similar to Maria. That's also the last version of Narwhal's daughter released so far, so I don't think we'll get something soon. The next character is Natalie, and she is like Mariah, not Maria. They are the same class from Romancing Saga 2, so she inherits the same stuff, and she has a similar design. The hybrid unit with a little bit of everything, nothing here stands out. Just okay STR, just okay agility, intelligence, will. Just endurance that's not that high, but she does have some defense layers that will not make this feel weak. And for passes, we have one that when she attacks, she has 50% chance to trigger a very small heal, that will be around 250 for the whole party. And when being attacked, she also has 50% chance to heal the party by around 250. So that's exactly the same thing I said that Mariah has. She was pretty interesting for some time when we didn't have reliable healers. It was a good way to recover enough damage to not die easily, but that time is long gone. I know. And now Natalie is just another option for a different type of gameplay, and now it's never designed to use someone like her. Although, if the enemy attacks too much like Antonius, she can actually benefit the party. Now, she has Action Switch. That's a very good one to have, and when she attacks with Pierce attacks, she grants herself an attack boost that increases her damage potential by 10%, lasts for 3 turns and stacks, and recovers 2 BP. BP recovery is important. When landing cold attacks, she also boosts defense by 15%, lasts for 3 turns and stacks, and then she recovers on HP by around 250. All of her attacks will trigger these effects. I mean, the ones that she wants to use on boss fights. So she will have good defense, she will have okay attack, and will keep triggering some HP heals and BP generation. She still has intrinsic spear 4, that means that she will reduce damage taken by 40% when resisting, has a 37% chance to evade resist attacks, and increases damage potential by 20. On average, she will have around 40% damage increase because the last attack boost never effectively lands. But we do have lots of defensive layers on the character that will allow her to take damage without feeling weak. Then skill number 1 is Aqua Lunge. It's a single target attack with Piercing Cold for free. That means that she will always be triggering all of her effects. The second one is an AoE attack with B power that tries to apply poison and just pierce damage. Well, this poison is made for Carmine in the future because Mondo had access to poison as well. Now it's full AoE and it's a much better character than Mondo. She will be sometimes the main healer besides Matriarch, so offering more, especially when you get stages 25 and 30 from Remembrance. The third attack is called Muji March. This is an AoE attack with Piercing Cold that will trigger all of her triggers from Action Switch. Then she would debuff all status from all enemies by 15%. And then she will also apply defense down with a guarantee that will decrease their defenses by 15%. And it stacks with other sources of defense down, lasts for 2 turns. So she can actually use this every 2 turns if she wants. Open the fight, Muji March, Aqua Lunge, Muji March. So every 2 turns you debuff. If she's your only debuffer, this will not trigger too many Defy Weakness, but since it's AoE, it's more for those fights when you have multiple targets. But it's still good enough. Well, you have to check Rock Bouquet, another character that can debuff all status, and she has it with her Lightning of Darkness. That's cheaper, 8 BP. Sometimes you can use every turn, and she applies attack down. That's, in my opinion, much better, because this decreases the damage from the enemy and not increasing our damage by just a few. We still have ScherBR. That's very useful. In her Halloween style, she can debuff all status and remove buffs applied. Also 8 BP. And you could say that, in a way, it's also similar to the Halloween version of Narwhal's daughter, because she could just debuff with Trick or Treat Carnival. Trick or Treat Carnival was for all enemies and had defense down. This time will last for 4 turns, but it didn't do damage. It's not like the damage is important anyway, but I think that this will not be as useful for real challenges because of the cost being higher, but it does work, at least. Especially if you skip it Rock Bouquet and ScherBR. Now, this character can inherit from Mariah. She can inherit Acupuncture Plus, that is not showing here, but it's a triple S power attack that debuffs STR by 30% with a guarantee, does not rely on intelligence. It may work in some fights. She can inherit Water of Life for single target heal and revive. That is from free. But if you have her premium style, you can inherit Ring of Life, that when it fully amplifies becomes Ring of Life Plus, that heals, recover, but we will use 2 LP, and remove debuffs applied to your team. That's something that may be important in some fights, but then again, it uses LP, can only be cast twice. Other inheritances are also Poseidon Shot Plus, that will attack and recover HP by very large effect. That will be around, I don't know, 1.8k. That it carries Pierce and Cold, that means that she will trigger all of her action switches. I believe that if you are using her as your main healer, if she does not get hit too much often, you can just guarantee that heal with Ray of Life, just like we used Mariah in the past. But I believe most people will want to use her on Remembrance than on actual fights, although she will work if the enemy attacks too much. It will be needed to be placed on either the Rising King formation or Rising Phoenix EX formation most of the time, because those will draw more enemy attacks. But Rising Phoenix EX is meta, so it's an okay way to use the character. And I don't think there's too many comparisons to make with Natalie. It's just that she will compete with healers, and healers that we have right now are, well, Roseanne is sometimes being your main healer, and there is also Polka with his chef style. There is also Mirza. There is also Muse that can also be used as just a healer. Well, in the end, I think that Natalie is a very good source for Remembrance because we don't have many healers there. You can use Matriarch with her heal plus evasion, but sometimes she needs help. And many of the Remembrance fights have more than one target anyway, so she will trigger some of her healing effects. But she's not a generalist. She will not be the best in slot like 95% of the time. You will just want to bring healers that are reliable, that will heal enough every 2 turns instead of Natalie. But in some fights, she will just feel very good to have, because she trigger many effects via her attacks, via her trigger when attacked, and it's nice to have someone different sometimes, but she is really not a must-have, just someone that works when content is designed for her. In the end, I think she only deserves a triple S grade, but even then, she's pretty passable. If you don't get her, don't feel sad. No content is designed after Natalie. And this is also the latest version of the character on JP. I don't believe the character will get something pretty soon. The next character is Sao, and she is a mage that has just okay status. Nothing here stands out too much. Intelligence is 110%, but will is 100. That's good enough to not get inflicted easily by ailments. But, well, could have been better. Moving far past it, she will block all sorts of cold attacks, even if it has double elements, and she will also grant herself Elemental Guard for Heat and Shadow separately. That will decrease damage taken by 25%. If a skill has both elements, it will decrease 2 times its stacks. Then we have, when attacked, damage will be reduced by 25%, and she has actually 5 EP per turn. Then we have Intrinsic, damage increases by 20%, she has a 40% damage reduction when resisting, and a 37% chance to evade. The first skill is Lightning Plus, that is a free lightning attack that can try to paralyze the enemy with medium chance. Well, paralyze is very niche, use it on Real Queen, and we will have so many different sources for that fight. The second one is Deus Blizzard Plus, that is a full AoE attack with cold damage that grants all surviving allies an attack and defense boost that will increase their damage potential by 15%, reduce damage taken by 15% as well. Both last for 2 turns, and she can cast this every 2 turns if you want this, but the values are not that great. She's not designed for this skill itself. She was designed to use Karatsu Ocean Splash. That is a support and fast skill that nullifies cold damage for 3 turns and applies a regen that will recover HP by around 250 by the end of turn for 3 turns. Well, we saw this before. In the first mage version of Alnus, he has Flame Barrier that nullifies heat damage and applies the regen. And then we saw that as well in Goddess. Goddess has it in her, not the recent style, the one before, and she could just apply Shadow Immunity and regen by the end of turn. So it's another shield for elemental damage that can be game breaking for some boss fights. If the enemy is focused on cold, you won't take damage, it will be super easy to win. But no boss fight is designed around this, and since she is a staff user, well, for Remembrance the regen doesn't really matter. In the case of Alnus, it always mattered because he's one of the only sources of healing for Axe users, so much better. And as for Inheritance, there's not much to say. She has Water of Life. The other ones are not important anyway. So at least she can revive if something happens and you don't want to use anyone else. The character is just for the shield, nothing else. But at least she gets 5 EP per turn. That means that sometimes she can cast an occasional Deus Blizzard to give some more damage increase and defense boost increase. Try to do this before you do Overdrive so that you increase damage by a little to try to finish a boss fight. But it's pretty passable as well. Once more, a character that is too gimmick, not a generalist, can be game-breaking, but content's never designed around Sao. Hence why she will take an SS plus grade in our tier list, and is also the last version of the character so far on JP. Now, back to the banner image. Is this banner worth summoning for? In my opinion, yes, but there are some reasons for this. First of all, this is a 10% banner. Usually banners only have 5%. Here we have double. But if you are using free gens, you have 1% chance for each of the characters, and then 4% chance to get an off banner. This is dangerous. If you want to pull in, if you have paid gens, you always have a guarantee of getting one banner unit. It's different, because yeah, they like to please the paid community. And that gives you more value. You get something, and you don't need to pity. This is a banner where you just have fun, summoning for some characters. They have some utility, but to be honest, the only really meta character is Narwhal's daughter. You can make use of Natalie, and you can make use of Ruby, you can make use of Sao, but in the end, Silence and Victor will be forgotten easily. So, it depends. I would say, if you really want to have a dollar buffer, you can go even to pity if you want, or Narwhal's daughter. No one else is worth a pity for real. So, I think it's worth based on the circumstances. It will receive a Silver Plus award in my opinion. I already pulled it and I got Natalie and Narwhal's daughter in one multi. I was pretty happy with being lucky after so much time, and I stopped it there. I don't think I will go after these characters because, well, half anniversary is coming and we will have lots of different units. You can also wait at least 1 week to see what's left in this celebration. With all that said, this is my opinion. What is yours? Please say here in the comment section. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please subscribe if you haven't. If you want to support the channel, we have links on the description of the video. I hope to see you soon in the next one. Bye.